That's not helping. I don't know.
Okay. Great, I call the March 31st, 2023 meeting of the Southborough Personnel Board to order. First order of business is approval of the minutes of February 27th. Circulated in advance. Any changes, corrections to the minutes? I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Don't fight them themselves. All in favor, Mr. Densky,
aye.
Mr. Malinowski.
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, minutes are approved. Next in your packet, the expenditure ledger, you'll see we have paid the $5,000 to the Cullen Center. They did finally give us the remainder of the scoring tools, so the work is done. We will talk later in the meeting about the remaining funds for employee development. Any questions, comments about the expenditure ledger? Okay. Moving on, Ms. Hale.
Yes.
Also, okay, let's try that again. Okay. I'm just gonna get his phone. Oh, okay.
Sorry, let's try that again. So in your packet also is a memo with some updates. The first one is Sean McCarthy, who was recently promoted to police lieutenant to fill the vacancy when Chief Newell was promoted. In addition, of course, the resignation of Lori Lavoli that was effective on March 3rd. And of course, we'll be talking about the next building commissioner shortly. And in addition, a resignation of a part-time library page, Maggie Fitzgerald.
Any questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you. Item B, so this is the time of the year when we start reminding everyone that they need to be working on performance appraisal. And I know earlier in the year, we had spoken about some tweaks to the existing policy, particularly the attachment. So what you have in your packets is just a draft with some proposed tweaks both to the policy and the form. And so it's clear the only changes to the policy are in number 2, last line, where it says on a form approved by the personnel board has been completed. And then I added and reviewed with the employee. And the only other change to this is in 3B, we needed to change the lettering of the schedule because of the other changes we made to the SAP. Although, as I think about this, the performance appraisal suite will be done under the existing SAP. So we will not be right. So we need to change this back to Schedule F. And then on attachment 1, the change is to, at the bottom of it, to add the employee certification. So we were clear that the employee has been reviewed with them and they did sign the original. Any other questions, comments about the forms?
You answered one of mine. Because we're using this year's SAP, and we had the discussion with the fire chief, and statutorily that probably should never have been in the SAP. We exempted recreation, and we had the same issue with the clerk. How are we dealing we took care of it now, the town meeting has voted.
Yeah.
Are we just gonna let those be, like both the fire positions and the election worker positions?
Yeah, I mean, my view is we really never had authority over them to start
I
with.
completely agree, I just wanna make,
Yeah,
I don't know that that's clear though. In.
yeah, I think, no, that's a good point. We should probably clarify that in the language here.
And then my second comment was mainly around, I know. This was prior to my time being on the personnel board, and there was an appetite, at least of those members that were sitting at that time, to get out of the performance evaluation process.
Yeah.
I don't want to revisit that, but what I would say is in any place of work, whether it be public sector, private sector, I think it's really important to acknowledge what development and growth that individual is expected to have in future. They may meet expectations, but I think just hearing some of the dialogue that used to happen on the personnel board when you were going through evaluations, I know a lot of the department heads listen to this meeting, and I would encourage them to really have strong discussions of what more the individual and employee can bring to the department and everyone, right? If we were to critique ourselves, we all have room for development. So just make sure that that's really part of the discussion as well, no matter how great the employee is doing. Just would really encourage that sort of dialogue to occur as well. And then on the flip side is in any work environment, we always have underperforming individuals. And I would just encourage that if a department head really does have an underperforming individual in their department, that they consult with Mr. Purple as the personnel director and anyone else that he sees fit. Because I know it's a lot easier just to put needs expectations and move along. So just really encourage those difficult conversations should one need to occur. And I'll leave it at that.
and I would echo all of that. There is a portion of the form that specifically deals with employee development, plans for employee development and that sort of thing, but you're right. We don't see the completed form, so we don't know, but it is our expectation that all of the form will be completed and that there be discussions about developmental needs of employees. So I'm going to suggest on the earlier point that we amend section 3 to add a C to say fire department employees and a D to say election workers. So it's clear.
Aaron,
Yeah.
what, they asked Vanessa, what form are we using for evaluate, what the department has used to evaluate what form? And is it still Russ Mulholland old form or?
It's been improved since then, but similar to that form, I can send it out to the board members again, just to refresh your memory if you'd like to see the tool.
I
It's a
remember
similar
the
type form.
old form, but I'd like to see the blue
Okay, sure.
at some point.
Yeah, we substantially revised, or we revised it maybe 3 years ago. And I think that's the form we're still.
And
We're
did
still
we,
using-
previous time on the board, there was a couple of individuals, department heads that didn't like the performance evaluation. They all complied, or they happy?
Yeah, if everyone's using it and turning it in, on time, etc. So I heard any request to change the form.
And their employees don't get an increase if they don't submit the certification, so. I think we've got 100% compliance.
Yes.
Today. All right. I will then move that we adopt the revised what's called draft policy and make it the policy on FY24 salary increases under section 7A of the personnel bylaw as it appeared in the packet, with the exception that section 3 will be amended to add a C, fire department employees and D, election workers.
Second.
With the attachments.
Second,
All in favor, Mr. Zinsky,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski.
aye.
Mr. Thorburn. Aye. Chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay, to accommodate Mr. Purple, we're gonna jump to 5B. Before A, and there are two requests with regard to the prospective new building commissioner whose hiring, I understand, was approved by the select board shortly, well, this morning. And so there are two requests. One to approve the salary above the midpoint, and the other to approve 3 weeks vacation under section 11B2. You have a memo in the packet from Vanessa. I don't know whether Mark or Vanessa, you want to say anything else about this?
So I'm not gonna step on Vanessa's toes too much, because she's really the one that, you know, took care of the hiring process. I just do wanna make sure the board is aware of, you know, how we kind of got here, you know, through this process. Right now, I think in terms of municipal candidates, you know, we're seeing that the demand is really outweighing the supply in terms of good candidates out there for any position. And in this process, we did have at least one other really good viable candidate that ended up backing out of the process just before the end of it, because they took another job as a building commissioner elsewhere. So it was unfortunate for us. Fortunately, we did have Mr. Burlingame in, you know, still in our process. And the select board did appoint him earlier this morning. And so I think we're very fortunate to get somebody who has got the credentials as a building commissioner. I think there was a concern that we were going to end up getting a local inspector who was then going to, as a condition of employment, have to become a building commissioner within the first year of employment. You know, Mr. Burlingame has been a commissioner for a little over 5 years, almost 6 years now. And I think he brings a good level of experience. The board was pleased, the select board was pleased when they got to meet him this morning. And I will tell you, we attended a retirement event last night for a fellow manager. And Ms. Hale was friendly attacked from another manager who was actually looking for building commissioners. I'm not getting people. How did you get people? How did you get somebody? So, you know, so we're very fortunate. So, but as to the particulars, you know, I can let Ms. Hale speak to that. I just want to let you know that, you know, I'm pleased is where we are. Want to acknowledge the work that she has done to help with this process. And, you know, we continue our streak of being able to get good people to help fill the gaps. If the board has any questions.
Where does Mr. Burlingame reside?
He resides in Spencer.
Can you go through how you determine the salary level? I understand there are towns that pay more than that, but what did you do sort of to come up with that number?
Sure, you know, that was in conversation with the town administrator, looking at Mr. Burlingham's prior experience and the fact that, you know, he is a certified commissioner, the level of expertise he has, the ability for him to really, you know, hit the ground running. You know, certainly he needs to learn the Southborough zoning code and you know, the Southborough way of doing business, but he has all the requisite skills and really does not need any additional training.
I think the one other piece too, and it was brought up this morning at the select board meeting, is the zoning enforcement piece. Because in this community, the zoning enforcement officer is also the building commissioner and vice versa. And you know, the fact that he has good experience in terms of zoning enforcement, which I think the board have pointed out is something they'd like to see a little bit more of here. You know, I think that's going to be a nice, you know, addition to the candidate.
Any other questions?
I have a few. All related. I'm good on the vacation.
Sure.
Obviously based on all the salary. Brian, what do we use for? What is the hourly rate here? Because so all we have is a salary. Everything in the SAP is actually hourly rate. Like what do you use for the number of hours in a year?
Standard 2080. 2080.
2080, all right, so. That would be $50 even, like that's like a perfect round, $50
Kristen would be
an
very
hour.
happy.
And this is grade 8.
Yes.
So here's my question, and I'm just thinking ahead because it could. So if I actually look at the salary grid that we almost adopted, that's below the midpoint. Right, grade 8, a $50 an hour salary would be somewhere between step 4 and step 5. What am I missing?
Below the midpoint on the new pay schedule
Oh,
or
yeah.
the existing pay schedule?
The new, and I get, we're appointing under an old SAP.
Right.
Right.
But I think that's important just to note that come 7/1
Yes,
of 23, he actually will be well, not well, but like
sure,
certainly not at the low end
sure.
and not at the middle. And the reason I point this out, because I think it's really important, is we heard loud and clear from our existing employees that almost got mapped into a grid system, that a lot of them are gonna end up at like step
Yeah,
1.
yeah.
So this person, if we had enacted a grid system and it was enacted today, would not be at the midpoint. They certainly wouldn't be at the
It
low
would not be
point,
at
but
the right.
okay.
Yeah.
That was question 1. Question 2 is, does anyone know off the top of their head what Miss Lavoli was making per hour or what her annual compensation was?
Her compensation, her total compensation for fiscal 24 was just shy of 109.
Okay, so,
Yep.
And Miss Lavoli came with a ton of experience.
Absolutely.
When she was hired, to the town. My final point, and then I'll get to kind of maybe something I want to consider for purposes of the motion, is, some of the comp communities are not the comp communities we use, and I don't know, like, we
Yeah,
either, we either use the 20 communities
Yeah.
or we don't, and I realize we have the zoning piece and not, but like Yarmouth and Concord stood out to me as
Yeah.
just like.
Yeah, I
not-
wanted to just grab a couple of, as quickly as I could yesterday, some data on, where this fell compared to other communities. And the communities that we usually use in our comp list had not entered their data in the MMA system yet. So I would have preferred to have all of our, of course, our normal comp communities, but I couldn't retrieve their data yesterday.
And the paying class study had ranges.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they didn't have what people are actually being paid, they had the ranges for what the positions. are.
I understand, and I think we all acknowledge that sometimes when you have an external recruitment, you just have to. And especially in this market, girls, we have a building commissioner, I think it's like many roles in this town, a very vital role, it's very public facing and we plan to support it. What I would ask we consider when we do the motion is that we actually, so 4986 was step 4 of grade A8. I would ask that if we are going to make this recommendation, and we do this with every recommendation going forward, that say, subject to the potential implementation of a salary grid, we actually denote in our motion where they would have fallen in this year's salary grid to start to, it could become a completely non-binding motion because we may never adopt the salary grid. I hope that's not where we end up. But I just think we're going to run into the same issue we all struggled with for many months with our existing employees. We don't start like making a determination now. And the reason I say this, right, is the next one is 5086 per hour. So that person, like, I don't want to see people jumping too much or too little. And I think it's a fair, like, we're taking the recommendation. We understand the personnel director and his team have done a lot of work, but I'd like to consider doing something like that because this grid matches what now has been adopted at town meeting in terms of a salary range, and we all agreed at 2%. We never had any debate or dissension on that. Just think it sends a message, moving forward. That would be what I would just ask we consider when we make the motion, to move forward with this.
Okay, and I'm trying to understand, because if and when we adopt the grid, it's gonna be July 2024, and I assume the grid is going to be different than the grid we considered, because we're gonna bump it up, I would expect,
By some code.
by some COLA. So I'm trying, and it's just me, I'm trying to understand what we're trying to accomplish. I'm not opposed to it, I just want to make sure.
Trying to make sure we don't, and if we truly do a 1% and implement a step system. In that instance, I'm trying to make sure that this individual would move approximately 3%, not 5 or 6%. Obviously, you can do the math from there.
Well, wouldn't that happen? I mean, wouldn't that just be, it's gonna be one other one, you know, we've got, I think we had like. Only a couple that probably would fall perfectly on step when we changed over.
But
to that
those
system.
are existing employees. That's just a problem we have to,
This
we
is
need to
technically gonna
adapt.
be an existing employee as well.
That's why I'm trying to make this motion, because, so like, let's just say we, like, 49.86, right?
Right.
Let's just say we adopt the 1%.
Yep.
That's not what we're adopting, just for every, right, but like,
Yeah.
we got a year to figure this out. That's another 50-cent increase.
Mhm.
Right? So that would mean if you were looking at where they would have fallen initially, that would have bumped them up to the next step automatically before you even start. I'm just trying to acknowledge that I think we have a position in front of us that we want to fill. The select board has already approved the appointment contingent upon this. I don't want to get in the way of it. We're not really going above the midpoint of what we just approved at town meeting. So if this was 3 months from now, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
Right.
You would have just done it and
Yep.
kept it on. But I want to start to set a precedent of how we're going to adopt the grid. And put people on notice that this is where we think they would have fallen. The board could always choose to
Sure.
reverse their decision, but I think it's important that we give the employee just a heads up that, hey, we may be going to a salary grid. This is where you would have fallen. If we did that, we've done that with all existing employees already,
Mhm.
right? So I'm looking at all the employees in the room, they already know approximately where they were gonna fall. And I just think it's fair to give the person notice that that's where they would have fallen, as well. If we do decide to go down this road, which we were. Train had definitely left the station, we just didn't get it to the next
Didn't
station.
have enough people on it. Yeah. Okay.
If we alter the amount, even by a small amount, so instead of 104,000, it's 103,000.
Please don't.
Well, that's my.
I don't wanna alter the amount,
Okay.
I'm good with the 104, I just think we should set where that would have fallen on a hypothetical grid.
Yeah.
If it were in place now.
Yeah. So that person may see a 2-point-something% increase next year, not a 3, a 4, or a 5. Or they may see more than that, like it just, we can decide where the personnel board goes during the year. I just want to give ourselves some optionality.
Yeah.
I don't want to alter the negotiations because we're at the finish line and I want.
I mean,
Mr. Purple to send a letter.
I have to assume that Mr. Valentine is gonna add this to, you know, the list and everything and that, you know, based on the salary, if we go to the grid, you know, it's going to be now, this is the gap that has to be closed to put them on the, you know, the next nearest step.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, how I'm confused. If we're not changing the amount, then they're gonna fall where they're gonna fall.
Correct.
I thought you were saying we should adjust it slightly so they're at a certain step, so we know they would only get.
I'm trying to take a middle road. I'm trying to acknowledge the negotiation and not alter the negotiation in any way, shape, or form. All I'm trying to
To
do is
recognize what it means.
like, I don't think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you two had the salary grid out when you were negotiating with the individual of where we were going. So I'm trying to acknowledge that if we do set it at $50 an hour, we just missed a step, like by 14 cents.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to acknowledge that, like, I don't want to add another dollar in next year because we rounded up, right? That's the issue we have, right? With the initial employees, I'm trying to, we'll find the right way to deal with that. But what I'm trying to do is kind of cut it off, right? Like, I'm planning to move forward with 3 weeks vacation. I'm planning to move forward with what was negotiated, I think we're being very fair. I'm just trying to put them on notice of approximately what step they would have fallen into. It can be reversed in the future time, but at least we put in the individual on notice that this is where we're headed, just like we've put every other employee on notice. I just think we have an option now to go down in terms of the grade. We don't have that option once you kind of appoint and say all existing employees, we round up to the next step. That's what I'm saying. I think the middle ground gets us $50 an hour and we'll move on, and we have a building commissioner and zoning enforcement officer.
Okay, any other questions? Dorian?
I'm good.
Okay, if you want to make a motion,
Okay, I will make a motion that the personnel board support 3 weeks of starting vacation time for the new.
can I just stop you there, because we really haven't discussed the
All right,
3
you want
weeks.
to do the salary? Okay,
Yeah.
fine. I will move that the personnel board support the recommendation of $104,000 a year for the new building commissioner / zoning enforcement officer, with an understanding that it's $50 an hour. And put on notice that if a bridge system had been implemented for this year, that it would fall at grade A8, step 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's approved. Okay, moving on to salary, to vacation. I think it's pretty clear the person meets the criteria of 11B2. So unless someone sees something that I don't see, I would entertain a motion to approve 3 weeks vacation for the new building commissioner.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn. Chair votes aye, that is approved. Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, I thought it would be a good time to start to think about what we should be focusing on in 23, the remainder of 23 and into 24. And I see that I have to do a revision and one of the items got left off, but we can deal with that. So there's some obvious ones: completion of the employee handbook. We have to get back in touch with Kate, because I think we're waiting for something from them, and they obviously had other issues they had to deal with, but we'll get back on that. Job description rationalization. So there's a draft memo in your packet, which is intended merely to start the process. It's not intended to be a final document. And I would also point out that there is no attachment, and there's no attachment for a reason. And I'm trying to find it in my, what am I? Oh, here it is. So my initial thought was, well, we'll just use the template that the Collins Center gave us. But when Vanessa and I looked at it, it's essentially their scoring tool. They basically took their scoring tool and put it on the template, and I'm concerned about using that as a format, because for the same reason that we haven't made the scoring tool public, because once you know what the answers are, you can pretty much draft the document the way you want. So my thought was that we can possibly at the next meeting take a look at a number of forms, and well, again, I'm hesitant to use that form for the reason I said, but we could look at a number of the formats that are currently in use and see if there's one that we like more than the others, and adopt that. But again, this is goal setting. This is not, I didn't come here to get decisions on this, but just to start the process, because I don't think there's an immediate reason to act, because the manager's gonna be taken up with the performance appraisal in the next few months, and I don't want to dump this on top of that. But by the same token, we don't want to forget it. The other issue is the timing. I thought about, well, we could just put in an end date, but I don't want to get hit with 48 job descriptions that we have to read, and actually be twice that number, because we're going to get the old one and the new one. So I think, but do we want to consider some kind of schedule for departments? Like for example, I put the library last because they have way more than anyone else to do. But so we got to figure out how we want to handle that piece of it. So I just throw it out with those thoughts.
So maybe procedurally, I think we obviously have to agree on what template we'll use, right? That's first and foremost. And I think any memo that is probably, any memo on timing is premature until, right, like we all know, right? Some decisions we make very quickly, some decisions, right, take time. I understand some of your concern about their template. I also, there's potential paths, we're not going to deal with that today. What I would say I need just a refresher on, and maybe I just completely misheard this from Mary. I thought she recommended that the job description process be handled centrally. So for example, personnel director take the existing job descriptions, right? And it's require a team, put them into the template. There should then obviously be a check back with the department head to, especially if we are using some sort of, judgment on it's this, but not that. But we need someone that can look, this is how we got in this conundrum to begin with, right? Is individual department heads use their own templates, use other towns, right? Like that's, so I thought Mary's overarching recommendation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, or if we need to go back to confirm. I thought she thought that there should be someone centrally that does a first pass, then consultation with the department head. So I actually think the work's in this building. It may not actually be with the department heads until there's something to read and review. That's, I think we should probably iron that piece out.
Yeah, Mark, do you want to comment on that? Whether that's something that you would contemplate doing?
Can you just give me a synopsis?
My understanding from Mary.
Yep.
Was that she recommended one party department oversee the entire process, so they could kind of left hand with right hand and say, this position, while there certainly are duties that are very consistent between departments, also have their uniqueness to individual ones. But she thought it should be handled centrally, as opposed to you go ask each department head to do their own and get it into a template. And then obviously the departments have to be part of the review on the back end, but I'm kind of flipping what we just said and saying, you or your designees take existing, put it into whatever template personnel board adopts. You then review it with the department head, then it comes before us, as opposed to department head doing it and it coming right to us. So I'm adding a step into the process that falls on your shoulders and your team's shoulders.
I don't disagree with that process. I think it's better to be handled centrally than letting the departments do it individually. Obviously, departments then need to review what's been done. And then we could simply bring, I don't know that they need to have a new vote from this board. I think it's just belt and suspenders that the board needs to, because it's the same information being put into a different format.
Well, I may disagree with you on that because fucking some of this was the whole problem with the EDC position, right? They brought forward obviously a brand new job description, et cetera. My concern was that that was already 7 other people's jobs. So
Yeah.
if it really isn't 7 other people's jobs anymore, and some of them haven't been updated in 10 years, let's face it.
No,
people are
yeah,
doing things that-
yeah, to the extent that you're simply taking the same information and reconfiguring it into a different format. You know, but I'm not gonna nitpick, because again, I think it's pretty pro forma, but,
I mean, I think there's 2 parts, right? Is there are certain things that have to be in every job description.
sure,
Like from a legal or process perspective, that apply to all employees. Then there's a subsection that only apply to people that have management level
Right.
supervision.
Right.
And then there's very unique factors that go to, that only probably the department head could
sure,
truly articulate.
right,
That's kind of how I was thinking about it.
I think the other component is, the call center, did make some minor adjustments or recommendations to some job descriptions. So the other piece of part of the SAP is any revisions to job descriptions need to be approved by that appointing authority, whether it's the Board of Assessors or Planning Board or, whatever, whoever the employee reports to. So
So
that's
the-
another layer.
so that can happen as it goes back to the department for their review, and then their approval would then come back to us, and then we come to this board for approval.
Okay, I mean, I certainly agree with Jason that even if there are no changes, this board needs to approve it. I want a record that
Sure.
this document was approved by the board on a certain date, so we know that. So.
That's
But
fine.
yeah, but I think if, assuming you're willing to take this on, that there are whatever 40+ job descriptions, someone's going to be.
We'll have it done by the time the new grid's in place. Yeah, no,
I was gonna make a motion on that at the next meeting. Be careful what you sign up for.
well, but again, a little tongue in cheek, but we actually had a town meeting at our normal time. Instead of having it so close to the end of the fiscal year and trying to tie everything up and get that all set. So, I do think that, within the next couple of weeks, we should be in a fairly good place to have some capacity to be able to do that. And again, once you set, a lot of it is the job descriptions for every position have a lot of 50–60% of it is standard for all positions. And then there's going to be that section that's going to be unique to that position. So I think it probably is going to go quicker than you think.
So,
And go ahead, John.
so what I'm hearing you say is there'd be a standard form for job description, which then there'd be a section that the department head would put in specific to what they.
No, I think it's so, obviously a conservation administrator and a business administrator are going to be 2 very different job descriptions. There are some things that you require of all employees, whether it's, and I leave it to Ms. Hale to give you the particulars as to the things that are always in there. But the conservation administrator is going to have very specific things that they do that a business administrator or an administrative assistant or, wouldn't do. We've already got that in the job. We've already got the job description. So we will take what's in the job description and we will populate it into that, and then the conservation administrator and the commissioner are going to have to take a look and make sure they agree that A, we've done it correctly, and B, that everything is still correct.
And it's my understanding you have a record of the modifications that the Collins Center
Yes,
recommended for them.
yes.
So are we trying, Barry, are we trying to get this done, at least transferring it all into the same format before the end of, by June 30th?
By
Or
June
the
30th of
new-
this year? No,
No?
because again, they're going to be working on performance appraisal. Well, you tell me,
In all honesty, I envision this as a summer project. I envision this as us having, being able to accomplish this between now and say Labor Day.
I think the personnel board has a job to do first. We gotta give you and improve the template.
Yeah.
Right, so we have to set our own timeline and then you can't start
Sure.
until then.
yeah, so that's going to be another month.
Okay.
We should have that template done by, I would say, the end of May at the latest. That template has to be done before anything else can go forward.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're saying the same thing.
In summer, I mean, somebody has to jump on this.
yeah. I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't decide that at our next meeting. I would hope.
I think the process for the review of the departments and any approvals that you need from other boards, committees, commissions, elected officials may take longer at the back end than it will to import all the information. Once we have the format, I think it will go quickly.
Yeah, I guess you're gonna have to alert the select board that they're gonna be seeing a lot of job descriptions suddenly.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll have a new board, so we'll have 2 new members, so that's a great way to break them in, Barry.
We'll give them something to do.
All right, anything else on that topic? Okay, moving on, and I will, in the meantime, in addition to having templates, I will revise the memo for us to look at for the next meeting. Next item I had was what Jason referred to earlier, the implementation of the salary grid. A lot of issues around that we're gonna have to think about. Vacation synchronization. I know you, Jason, you wanted us to continue to pursue that.
Unless someone has any other ideas, I'm done for now on that
Okay.
topic. I think it's right, we didn't end where I thought we were where we started, but I think the job market flipped on us over a 2-year time frame too, so. Unless someone wants to revisit it, I mean, I think we've implemented what we need to implement for future employees, and we've given protection to existing employees, which are the 2 things we heard loud and clear through the process, so.
Okay,
I'm good if everyone else is good.
I'm happy to strike that from the list. And the other one, which sort of got lost in the shuffle at the end, was vacation for new hires. Do we want to revisit that?
So, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but the unanimous vote at town meeting, right? Someone is automatically gonna get 2 weeks when they start. And they will transition to 3 weeks after 2 years, absent a vote similar to what we just took. So I can't see doing anything else than that, but I welcome feedback from others.
Anyone else? John?
Just a quick question on it, actually. The wording wasn't very clear in the warrant. Are your existing employees going to remain at their 10-year mark? Because you're gonna have a few, fall through the cracks, and we're gonna be shorting the week vacation about 3 to 5 years that they were working on. The 7-year mark changed, and if you take some employees that started at 3 weeks, they would have went to 4 or 5 years, 5 to 10 years. They're not gonna get to 5 to 15 now.
No, that's incorrect.
They're gonna gap.
We have, let me pull up the warrant before I speak.
Yeah.
Can we come back to that part of public? I'm gonna pull up, we thought about that, that's not what's gonna happen though, so I will. Let me
Yeah,
pull
no
up,
one's,
I'll pull it up. while we-
okay, but no one's gonna be adversely affected. Okay, so
Can't miss it with this, right?
I'm gonna strike number 5. Now, my original agenda had other on it, because I didn't want to foreclose any other ideas that people had. So despite the fact it didn't make it into the revision, I don't see an issue with our opening up to other projects in addition to what we do in the normal routine that we want to or need to take on for the coming year.
Barry, can I interject something? If someone's going to speak in the audience, can they please come to the mic at the table? Because
Yeah.
it's difficult to hear them.
Yep,
And I don't know if I'm the only one who just can't hear them because I'm on Zoom, but
no, that's fine. We'll do that. Sorry.
I think with employee handbook. Great implementation in job descriptions. Unless someone has something that they really are passionate about. I think we need to put all our energy into those 3, and I think we've kind of divided and conquered along the way. And then look, hey, we're done in and around November, and we have appetite for more, then board to bring up, but I don't wanna undermine those other processes and bring other things forward. I mean, we could probably sit here all day and come up with ideas, but those are three very key things.
Any other comment? Okay, I'm happy with that. Any other bit, before we get to John's question, any other business to come before the board?
I just want to go back to.
Oh, sorry, employee development. How did I skip over that? But yeah, let's go back to 4A. So you have the memo from Vanessa on training, and as you saw, we have $7,000 in our budget for this fiscal year. You recall that we added that budget at the request of Select Board. And my understanding was Select Board was primarily interested in training on DEI issues. So Vanessa has come up with a few options in that regard. What are people's thought about A, doing DEI training, and B, either of the presenters that are mentioned here?
Just want to add this at the very bottom of the memo, something that came out in both the survey we did recently and my conversations with various employees of requests for training in public speaking. That's something you kind of just learn on the job, and we've never done that before, but I think that would be beneficial to everybody. It's not only, department heads making presentations, but it's, our frontline staff, interacting with customers and residents, or employees in their communications with their own peers or their own department heads or boards. So I wanted to make note of that suggestion as well.
I mean, on that, I guess I'd want to see what the program is, whether it's actually public speaking for a group or whether it's just interacting with people on a one-on-one basis, because I think the skills are different for that, but fair enough. And
And I just wanted to add, trying to get some additional information from a consultant that was recommended and didn't have that in time for the meeting this morning, but hope to hear from that person by next week.
okay, thoughts on DEI training generally? Is that something we are interested as a board in supporting?
Yes.
Anyone else? Vanessa? Dorian?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. We have two, seems we have two options for that such training. My own thought is, and we can get to format, but in terms of presenters, we've used Callie in the past with very positive reviews, as I'm told. Whereas the other individual seems to be new to this business, doesn't say, I'm not saying she's not skilled and might do a great job, but my inclination would be go to someone who we have track record of and we know does a good job. So what would you recommend in terms of format?
So the range is because she prices it differently based on whether it's virtual or in person. When we did the first session before with department heads, it was during COVID, so it had to be virtual. She also had a facilitator with her, who is a woman of a different background and race, which helped the conversation and enhanced the training. So that was a bit more expensive. So that's what the range is. We believe that this particular trainer has been here before. She's very effective in person. So the cost would be a bit more expensive if she had a facilitator with her. And I can narrow that down with her. I just wanted to give you what the range of the cost would include.
Yeah, and in terms of format, I mean, I'd be strongly in favor of doing it not on Zoom, in person. I think this kind of training I would expect it to be much more effective in person than just looking at a screen. So,
I agree with Mary.
I mean, I know it comes with a cost, but I think when we talked about this last year, I think the more employees we can get access to training, the better. I think that was the message I think that came from the select board too, when they moved part of this budget over. And I guess my question would be, does this include union employees too, or is it just?
So when we've done these kinds of trainings, we've opened them up, to all employees. Even though, this budget, really is focused on non-union employees, but we've never restricted union employees from attending. We want to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah, I realize you can't call in all off-duty firefighters, police
Right.
officers, or something like that, but at least, especially those that are on duty absent
Yes.
emergencies, hopefully there's some encouragement
There is,
to
yes.
attend that. I mean, I think I said this last year, like we enter Q4 tomorrow. I really don't like making these decisions in Q4. I'd rather have this discussion in the summer next year, right? We already know what our budget is for next year. I think we gotta do something. I think we need to use the budget. I think we need to use it wisely, but I don't. If it requires an extra facilitator and it's within our budgetary means, like let's do an effective training consultants to get something out of it. That's kind of where I'm at. And defer to those of you that run the town on a day-to-day basis to know what the evolving needs are that you need to deal with and make sure your team's ready to deal with.
any other comments?
I don't understand why we would need a facilitator. Unless every single employee was going to this. And if, we're gonna spend $2,000 to $6,000, especially $6,000. I would be hopeful that most of the employees would be there and that we're not just doing it for 5 people and spending that kind of money. So I think we have to, I understand we have the money for training, but to just haphazardly throw it away and just have some kind of a training thing to me isn't worth it either. So I think we have to take a hard
No,
look at participation.
I agree with that. I think the board expressed some disappointment in the last couple of years with the actual attendance. So I would assume that personnel director, assistant town administrator have heard that loud and clear that we're going to sponsor something, we expect people to be there.
Yeah, it's not just, okay, I don't have to work, I'm just gonna take off and have half day off. I think we have to structure it in a way that employees know this is not an optional event, and that people who are not there have to have prior approval not to be there.
Don't do it in June, just.
Yeah,
people use- In municipals, right, people use a lot of vacation in June.
We're certainly hoping for your approval to schedule this as soon as possible and to, schedule it on a day where we know the majority of employees could attend and working out those details and that date ahead of time.
Can you respond to Ariane's point about what's the role of the facilitator? What are we paying for in getting a facilitator?
So the facilitator that Ms. Ritter used in the past was someone who is of a different race and led a lot of the conversation related to unconscious bias and the importance of appropriate behavior and working with people of different backgrounds and why those points of views were really important in the workplace of 2023. So it was very beneficial to the topic. I can share the slides that we used in the past with this particular trainer on the department head training if the board would like to see that.
I would think that Kathy Ritter should be able to communicate a lot of those issues and concerns. And I love the idea of the training. I think it's critically important. I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm trying to be price conscious. I don't want to just spend money for the sake of spending it. I don't want to just be bringing people in because it looks good. I want it to be effective, efficient, and save the town as much money as possible and not blow through $7,000 if we don't have to, because it could benefit another department somewhere else when we put it back in the general fund if we don't use it. So I guess I'm just looking more at pricing and making sure that whatever we are doing is actually doing what we're expecting it to do.
Okay, that's
Training is
fine.
critically important, Vanessa. I'm 100% behind it, in favor of it. But I want it to make a difference. I don't want it
Okay.
just to happen and then it's forgotten about. You know what I mean? Like, then it's not worth it. I'd rather just not do it. And it needs to affect and impact as many employees as possible. Like I said, to have 2, 3, 5, it's not worth doing the training. Because they're gonna forget about it
Certainly
the next day. Yeah, so, and I mean, I think we have to look at the number of people coming and really take a hard look at spending the money on this kind of training, so.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
So does this $2,000 to $6,000 is how many people attend?
She doesn't base it on per person, this particular trainer. It would be, you know, per workshop.
I would think it might help facilitate this whole thing if everybody doesn't have to go the same day if you have two different sessions. You know, I don't know how your prices will work out, but you. that's
Yeah,
up to
I
you.
can certainly ask that.
Why don't you go back? I think, unless I hear differently, that we're inclined to go with Kelly Ritter and get more specific pricing information, both in terms of doing one or doing
Okay,
multiple sessions, and that it would be in person, and also to come back with whatever you can get on this other subject, the public speaking
okay,
materials with, because I think we need to make the decisions no later than our next meeting. And that's means we still would have to get the training done in, as Jason said, in May. So. Okay, anything else on that? All right, any other business before the board, before we go back to John's point? Seeing none, with public comment, and Jason, you want to
So
respond?
maybe I'll repeat the question just so Dorian could hear it. So the question was around the SAP changes that just were enacted, and obviously with us going to changing it to 7 years as opposed to 5 and 10 years. All we say in the warrant, and this is purposeful, is basically if someone starts with 3 years, 3 weeks of vacation, they have to wait 5 years before they would go to 4 weeks and jump to the next band. So we address it by bands. So now, right, if we just use our new employee, so when someone gets hired with 3 weeks at the approvals, the personnel board, it's the same as it used to be. They're gonna go to 4 weeks at 5 years, and 5 weeks at 10 years. So nothing has changed. Really what we've done is streamline the process for those that don't have municipal experience or the other relevant private experience that are following the grid that's outlined. You have to come up now, yeah.
Sorry, John.
The 10-year mark doesn't exist anymore.
Understood, but the way that Kristen implements it, and Brian can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, is she basically backdates someone's
Okay.
years of service in the system. So that, and we really have a specification. We actually talked about this quite a bit, right?
No, I
Yeah.
know you
Yeah.
guys discussed
Yeah.
that, just the way the warrant is, it's all inclusive.
Yeah, well, but we say that they jump every 5 years absent, so, yeah.
Okay,
That's how, yeah, if we need to clarify it, if someone ever challenged it, but that's certainly.
yeah, because I know like
the
2 or 3
intent.
people ask me, that's always I brought it up, it doesn't even affect me, but other people have asked me.
Yeah, no. If they have any individual concerns, I'm happy to speak to them. And I'm sure Brian and Kristen will implement it perfectly too.
All right, excellent, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing it up, John.
Any other public comment? Seeing none. Move to calendar. I was hoping, for my own selfish reasons, that we could meet school vacation week. Are you is anyone not around school vacation week? Let me put it that way. It's April 17th, right?
I am not gonna commit one way or another to being around. For two reasons, but I don't need to bore you with those. Likely, in most instances, could make a Zoom absent an emergency.
Okay.
I will not be available. I'm gonna be somewhere where there is literally no internet. So I can
Okay.
Zoom, but I'm available. Only on the Friday, yeah, so I would say I'm out the whole week. I'm sorry, Barry.
Okay. Well, it's not a problem for April, but it's gonna be a problem for May. So what about the last week of April? Of April, right?
For in-person,
For in person?
Um. In person, I'm on a business thing with Larry in Washington DC. I could do it Zoom, but.
What about everyone else?
I'm always a bit.
flexible if we can agree now that week.
That week?
Yeah, I'm available.
Okay,
for Zoom.
is there a day that's better or worse that week?
No,
Hearing none. Let's shoot for. We do the 24th, Monday.
Good.
At 9. Okay.
Yep.
The reason I'm trying to get it as early as possible, so I'm going to be sort of out of commission from mid-May to mid-June. So I was hoping to have a meeting the latter part of the week of May 8th. So like the 11th or 12th.
it's fine. I'm good for that.
Do you think we'll have enough to talk about 2 weeks later? I understand what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
but like, I guess we would just cancel it if we don't have anything.
Yeah.
To talk about. The 11th, I cannot do, because I'm doing
Okay.
performance evaluations all day, so, the 12th, would be preferred.
Okay, does the 12th work?
12th,
Sorry.
yep, 12th is fine for me.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Okay, I should mention that Michelle is going to be rejoining us. I tried to reach out to her to find out her availability in advance for April, and didn't hear back from her, so, but I'll communicate with her and let her know when the meetings will be. Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. I'll second it.
All in favor, Mr. Jazinski,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski.
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn. Chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Aye.
Thanks.